Hi, and welcome to Decoding AQ, helping you to learn the tools, mindsets, and actions to thrive in an ever-changing world. Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Decoding AQ. With me today, I have Chris Croft. As we were just discussing before coming into the recording, we've known each other for quite some time, had lots of business adventures and entanglements and joy. But Chris is a writer, he's a keynote speaker in some great topics like project management, time management, negotiation skills. And actually, I think he consumes his life with thinking and writing about these things. He makes lots of online videos. And alongside speaking at conferences and expanding this, not just in time management and project management, but into things like being a good boss, happiness, and presentation skills. He's got over 35 courses on LinkedIn, so he's been prolific and busy. And they're not in the corners where nobody looks at them. In fact, his negotiating course has had over 500,000 learners. So, Chris, welcome.
Yes, put like that. I've got my finger in loads of pies, haven't I? It's curiosity for me. I love ideas and finding out about new things. Which is useful when you don't quite know what the future is going to be, isn't it? Because probably one of the things I'm doing will survive. In fact, I know quite a lot of trainers who really homed in on something like, finance for manufacturing companies or negotiating for banks. And of course, all you need is a bit of a slump in that sector and you're really stuffed. Luckily for me, I've been doing public sector, private sector, lots of different subjects, and they've all come and gone, but the total has stayed roughly constant. I'd love to claim it was skill, but it's really lack of focus. Possibly.
It's this balance, isn't it, between being open and being focused, and that paradox at the same time, right? And I remember coming on to your project management course quite some time ago, definitely over 10 years, maybe 15 years in Poole. I think it was around the NHS environment of a office area that you were running. And I came and sat in and really explored my own understanding of project management. And I have referred to and utilized those skills that you gifted me over every year since. So a deep thank you for that, Chris.
That's one of my favorite subjects, project management, actually, because it's one of the few things that is pretty much nailed. I mean, we know the answers, we know how to do it. There are things that work. You know, if only the rest of life was like that. But project management really is nailed, as I say in my little book that I've managed to. I finally wrote this because actually I wanted to put a few things right, or put the world right, because I think there are, I won't bore you with the details, but there are certain project management theories that I think are not quite right, like schedule performance index and various things like that. And so I wanted to do a book to say what I think. But project management is pretty much, I mean, there's a few debates around the edges, but it's pretty much sorted now. Whereas things like time management, I mean, who knows? They're much more open and tricky.
Yeah. Do we manage time, or are we managing ourselves, not time? Because I've always thought that, time management. No, it's not. I'm not managing time. I'm managing me in time. But anyway, one of the things I did want to ask, because you've published loads of books, and before we go into the background of working in, helicopter manufacturers and being a lecturer at universities, is asking you why vegetables. So you've got a book on management vegetables. So tell me more about why you chose vegetables as a medium for one of your books. There you go.
I haven't come here to plug books, honestly. I know there's no money in books. There's only fun.
Yeah.
And I've sort of every now and then I'm fascinated by things that spell things. You know, so people talk about SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, etc. And I think that's a bit of a boring one, actually. But I'm interested in things that spell things, and I'm interested in the sort of how management has quite cheesy things. And somebody suggested I should have the celery of success or the fennel of failure, and I was just tickled by what would those be? What would the fennel of failure be? You know, and then I thought maybe I could think of 6 things which began with FENNEL that could spell out fennel and could be the fennel of failure. And you know, I had to think of something beginning with L that led, etc. And I sort of gradually over the years collected just a load of fun management ideas. And it may have started actually with the management potato, which is a sort of thing that I use to explain motivation and how if you criticize somebody, it's like taking a bite out of their potato. And the more you criticize, the smaller the potato gets. And criticism doesn't improve people's performance. It just nibbles away their potato, whereas praise and encouragement grows the potato. And I sort of draw this, and people find it hilarious that there's a thing called the management potato. And then after I'd got about 10 or 15, I thought there's maybe scope for a little book of them, a mini book at least. And then I got really into it, and the sort of second edition, it's become quite thick. It's got 142 pages here, but it's got animals in and things as well. But it has got, you know, it's got.
Do you have a favorite other than the management potato? Is there a vegetable that you have put into an acronym that you really love and tickles you with a smile?
I do find parsnips funny. I've got the parsnips of possibility. I think some of the things in here, it actually says management vegetables, some animals and some other things. I quite like the volcano of success, actually.
Okay.
And the word volcano is volunteering for challenges, being organized, being a good listener, making contacts with people, associating only with positive people like yourself. Nostalgia is out, never look back, and have clear objectives, goals for your life. And that spells out volcano. And I really do think that those are the 7 things. And it's just, I like the challenge of trying to get things to spell out a word. And I've got things like the resourceful souls and all kinds of, got some really odd things. This is the strangest book you'll ever see. And you can get it on Kindle for about £3 or something. I mean, why would you not?
Why not? Why
but
not?
I know it won't make me famous. I've even got a picture on the back of me
with some vegetables,
discovering some vegetables in my garden. I assembled a whole load of unlikely things. Like, I think I might be holding a lemon or something there, which I've just found next to a wheelbarrow with my tie on. So it was just something that amused me really, and I started collecting them, and things like the staircase of success and things, sort of really cheesy sounding, but actually quite good when you look into it. And so it's just a fun book. It's a fun thing, really.
One of the challenges I think many people face in business is the level of seriousness. And I've seen the level of seriousness kind of increase when we're more uncertain, when we're more fearful, when we're under pressure, that we tend to get serious and not play. And in my book, at the end point, I talk about the Monkey King, who can, in the point of absolute death and, real experience of, right, you're fighting, your life depends on it. Can you smile? Can you smile in face of danger? And I've always had this vision of you, Chris, whenever we meet, that there's always a smile. There's always an element of fun in amongst the seriousness, that there's some really serious, profound thoughts, profound topics, but you deliver it in a way that is joyful. And that, I think, came to almost to the bubble. The volcano erupted around this joy when we last physically met in an Indian restaurant in Salisbury, and you were
gotta have a curry.
Gotta have a curry. And you were talking about happiness and your relationship with discovering, uncovering curiosity of what is happiness? What does it mean? So tell me a little bit more about that project, one of 9 projects you're currently working on.
I've got a few things going on in parallel, too many really. I can never resist it when somebody says, I've got this thing I want to do, would you be interested? And I go, yeah, that sounds great. So I'm making some project management software and doing all sorts of things with people at the moment. The Happiness Project, funnily enough, the Happiness Project has not made me as happy as I'd hoped. Happiness is really a difficult subject. It's really difficult to pin down, because there isn't one thing that will make you happy, like, money, let's say, that doesn't make you happy. Although even that is fascinating, because actually money does make you a little bit happier, but the price you have to pay to get the money makes you less happy. And so overall, in order to earn more, to have a higher paid job, will probably make you less happy. If you could get the money without the work, that would make you happy. So, if you drink a bottle of wine that's twice as expensive, it'll probably be 10% nicer. And so happiness will probably give you another 10%. Or have a car that's twice as expensive. You get 10% more enjoyment from it, but the price you pay will be minus 20% for the stress and the hours you work and the risk you have to take, and or unpleasant work, like say working on an oil rig or something. You earn loads of money, but what a price to pay. So, and less time with your family and all those things. So happiness is fascinating, but it's very fragmented. And in the end, one more book, I have done the big book of happiness, and because I don't think there is a book out there that just says this is what you do. The nearest I've seen, actually, Sonja Lyubomirsky has done a really good book on happiness. The title's just slipped my mind, but I'm a big fan of Sonja Lyubomirsky. But most of the books are very intellectual, or they just tell a few stories. But I've just been looking at what practical things can you do to actually get more happiness out of every day, to sort of suck out the juice from the orange, as it were. And I ended up with 87. And so here's my book of 87. But what's really difficult and what's bugging me really is to try to sort of put them into a model, to sort of, is synthesize the word? I don't know, but to sort of get them into a structure where you can, so Maslow's hierarchy, which people talk about it being motivation, was really about happiness. And he talked about security and having friends and being important and things. And he's got sort of 5 things on there. But all of those divide down. So how do you get security and friends? How many should you have, and what do you do if you haven't got enough? And it's all very tricky. So I've just been contemplating that, but I found it a bit frustrating because it's very difficult to get it into one model. All you can do is have a big book of happiness and open it up on a random page and do what it tells you. So that's one thing. But the other frustrating thing about happiness is that everybody wants it, but nobody's prepared to do any work to get it. So everybody goes, oh yeah, I'm interested in happiness, because why would you not be? Why would you do anything if it doesn't make you happy? And yet, if you say, come to a 1-hour Zoom call and we're going to talk about happiness for free, people go, oh, I'm a bit busy. Yeah. And if you say it's 20 quid, oh no, I'm not paying 20 quid to increase my happiness. And so it's really odd how people won't take it seriously as a subject. That you can sell books on how to recharge NiCad batteries or something. People will spend 20 quid on that, but they won't spend 20 quid on happiness. And even podcasts. I mean, I challenge the viewers of this to just Google podcasts on happiness. There are only about 10, and 9 of them are useless, really. I mean, I found 1 or 2 that I like, but really, there's not much out there. Whereas if you look at something like sales, there are hundreds, and a lot of them are really good. But happiness is this weird, neglected area. So I've come blundering in thinking it can't be that difficult, and I can do something really good. And first of all, it is difficult. And secondly, whatever you do, people don't seem very interested. When did you last see a TV program about happiness, for example? And I've been pitching various ideas where we have celebrities who tell us what makes them happy, so maybe, for example, Elton John secretly loves playing snooker, and maybe Mo Salah loves fishing. So you could have, Mo Salah could take Elton John fishing, and Elton John could take Mo Salah out and they could play snooker, and they could show each other and discover how good it is. So it might not even be their primary activity that gives them their happiness. Although Elton could teach Mo Salah how to write songs or something, but it'd be just really interesting to explore it. And you get some celebs in, so people would watch the program, but mainly you'd be looking at what really underlying that, what makes people happy, like learning, for example, makes people happy, and using skills and things. But actually dabbling makes people happier than being an expert on one thing. So you could get really good at tennis if you gave up everything else and just did tennis. But all that would mean would be you couldn't play tennis with your friends anymore because you'd be too good. You'd have to hire a pro, and actually you do better to just bang a tennis ball around at weekends, but also write some terrible poetry and play the saxophone badly in a band. And that's the third one, is what I do, by the way. And there's no point in trying to be as good as John Coltrane. You just get depressed, just play the saxophone badly in a band, or half decent, And so dabble in lots of things and you can pull out more happiness than you can from one. So yeah, happiness, it's a fascinating
interesting,
subject.
isn't it? This balance between principles and methods, between having a one system versus how does it apply to me? Because you describe there this thought process of what makes us happy can be very individualized. It could be an activity like fishing or snooker. It could be spending time with family, or it could be doing something like serving somebody else.
Yes.
And learning, having a particular mindset, the language around mindset at the moment of being positive or actually just being grateful.
Although I think everybody has those same underlying principles. So everybody's made happier by learning, but learning different things.
Yes.
And everyone's is made happy by helping other people. We know that. There was a great study where they gave people £20 to just go and spend. And then they said, how happy did that make you? And then they gave them another 20, they had to give it away. And then they said, how happy did that make you? And people were happier giving it away than spending it on themselves, which is quite interesting, because who would do that?
Yeah.
And then they gave them £100 and did the same. And the £100 didn't make them any happier than the 20, giving it away. And maybe not spending it on themselves either, actually, but certainly the giving away. So if you've got 100, the key is probably to give it to 5 different people at a rate of £20 each or something. But so it's everywhere you look, it's fascinating. But the same principles do apply to everyone. So, we know that dabbling works. So dabble in whatever you like, and learning works. So find something that you want and learn it. And it could, as you say, it could be a language, could be a musical instrument, computer coding, whatever. So I think there are principles underneath all of this, but laziness is the big killer, because a lot of people think, I can't be bothered to learn something new. And then they don't do it. And one of my favorite books is The Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck. And in there, he goes on about laziness. And that, when I first read that, I was amazed. I'd never noticed laziness really as being important, but it's huge. If you, and I've noticed as I've got older, I've got a bit lazier. I tend to think, I can't be bothered with that anymore. So there was paddle boarding going on down in Poole Harbour. Do you want to try paddle boarding for free for an hour? They said. And my first reaction was, I don't know if I can be bothered to do that. And then I thought, no, I need to keep coming out of my comfort zone and have a go. And I'm going to fall in a few times and look stupid, but I'm going to do it. And I did it. And it was actually really fun. And I don't love it enough to go and buy my own board and do it every day or anything. But it was, it was another bit of dabbling, and it was a laugh, and it was great. But I so nearly didn't do it just because of laziness and using getting older as an excuse. Yeah. And I suppose we've all got excuses we might use, actually. Other people probably have other excuses, but that was the one I found myself using.
And I think if we come to this from, say, a work perspective, that, a change, a new thing comes along and is offered, right? Whether it was paddleboarding or it's this new bit of software, Mr. Gantt, or whatever we might have that exists out there that we haven't done before, we might say, and insert lazy excuse, whatever that might be. I'm happy with what I've currently got. I've spent all this time and effort learning what I currently use. It doesn't look like what I'm used to, so it looks a bit alien, sounds a bit alien. So I'd rather—
so many reasons to resist.
I'd rather not dabble.
Yeah.
And I think the decision-making process that we have that explores either curiosity, are we mentally flexible enough to look at other options? Are we so gritty in terms of we apply our grit either to, my ultimate goal and objective is to be highly productive, whatever it is, but I'm open to many ways of doing it? Or am I really gritty in, no, I must use this process, I must use this software? Or is it the outcome that I'm gritty and passionate about, and therefore I'll try anything? I have got a quick question, though, just before we move away a little bit from happiness. And it's one that came up with my coach, Dan Sullivan, when we were talking about the pursuit of happiness in terms of the US view, and that it is part of their culture, part of the declaration, and using that language and version of the pursuit of happiness, placing it as something external that you have to go and find, rather than a language tweak of the expansion of happiness, saying it's already inside, an internal thing that you're allowing to then flourish. Do you have a view on that just notion of happiness being something you pursuit, whether it's the Declaration or it's Will Smith's movie, or
Yeah.
it's an expansion, something that actually you unlock, you water,
Well,
you nourish, you fertilize inside. Do you have a view on that?
yeah, people say the faster you chase it, the faster it runs away and all of that sort of stuff. People much wiser than me say that you can't pursue it. But the idea of expanding it doesn't make any sense to me either, because how do I expand it? You know, I'm sitting here right now. What do I do to expand my happiness? And suppose you said, well, one way to expand it is to be more grateful for what you've already got. So, and this is known to work. At the end of every day, you just write down, or you discuss with your partner, if you've got a partner, 3 things that have happened today that were great, that you're grateful for. And it might be just aspects of your world, or it might be actual things that happened. So you just write down 3 things, and some days it might be the same thing as you wrote last week or whatever. And doing that makes you happy, because it makes you get a second bite of that thing that made you happy earlier. And in fact, you might even have not got much happiness from it earlier, because you might be taking it for granted and not even thinking about it. So that's a technique that works. But so suppose you decide, right, I'm going to do every evening, we're going to do 3 things. Is that chasing it, or is that letting it grow? And I don't know. I mean, I think, you know, do my 87 things, or just do 10 of them. And I don't regard that as chasing it. You know, I think chasing it is where you think, when my ship comes in, I'm going to be happy. When I get promoted, I'll be happy. If I only had another 5 grand pay, I'd be, or if I could save up this, then I'd be happy. When I move house, when I get a dog. And I think that,
so a conditional
living for the
happiness.
future, yeah, that's definitely a bad idea.
Okay.
There's also something called the hedonic treadmill, which says that we get used to things really quickly. So if I could only have that nice car, when you get the nice car, it's brilliant for a couple of weeks, and then it just becomes the car, you know. Or if I could only have that really nice watch, and you get the new watch, and it's great, and then, you know, handbag or whatever it might be, and we just get used to everything really quickly, and it's just a treadmill of endless. And so consumerism is all based on, you know, selling us that lie. So chasing happiness by having things, or by increasing things like money, that's definitely not going to work.
So if we come,
yeah,
Chris, then to, let's say, our careers and our career development, and we have the analogy, you know, of the career ladder, and we look at, you know, increasing, and we might start off our career in production management. We might evolve then to a director of production. We might then be involved as a general manager of a packaging company with lots of staff, to then, I might evolve and become a lecturer in a university, to then, I'm going to be a speaker and trainer and author.
Yeah.
But each of those career expansions and progressions that we are learning, we're getting new information, and we're navigating. I wonder if you can just, in a reflection and thought back, not from a nostalgia way, because volcanoes, you know, no nostalgia, no looking back, but looking at your career, how has that shaped the 9 projects you're now working on? Can you give us some sort of thought to how you've evolved your decisions of when something comes in front of you, you say yes or no to it? And how has your experience and career evolved and shaped that a little bit?
I'm going to draw a diagram. Everyone needs to know this, and a lot of people haven't seen it. This is Ikigai. You'll know about this, Ikigai, which I think is Japanese for the meaning of life or something like that. I can't remember exactly. And this is absolutely my career written down. Well, when I say career, blundering from one attempt to be happy and successful to another. And so I started off as an engineer. And the first thing with Ikigai really is to think about what do you like doing? And I sort of liked maths, and I liked design and things. And so I thought engineering would be good for that. And so the first part of Ikigai is to find something you like, but the second part is to find something that you like and you're good at. So I like playing the saxophone, but I'm not very good at it. Although one of my 9 projects is the band. I'm in 2 bands at the moment, so I like playing the sax, but I'm not good at it. I found with being an engineer, actually, that I quite liked it, but I wasn't very good at it. I wasn't detail-y enough. You know, you've got to be really detail focused. And that actually meant that I didn't entirely love it either. My plan when I got to Westlands was to design helicopters. So I thought, in the first week, I'll design a normal one. Second week, I'll do a double decker. Third week, I'll do a really fast one. Fourth week, I'll do one shaped like a fish. And I kind of vaguely thought that's what it would be like. And of course, when I discovered it takes 10 years for 300 people to design a helicopter. And after 30 years, when you're senior, you might be in charge of the back wheel. I just thought, sod this. And so I didn't really love it, and I wasn't
Chris,
very
can
good
I share
at
a quick
either.
story?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So I was at Web Summit last week in Lisbon, and they shared the story about the first circumnavigation of the globe in an aircraft that is purely powered through solar. It's an electric aircraft powered through solar. And when the guy had this ambition, he went to Airbus, went to Boeing, went to all the aircraft manufacturers and said, I've got this. And they all said, it's impossible. It can't be done. And very long story short, he found a boat builder who knew no better, who ended up creating and designing this aircraft that in effect actually achieved it and did it because he was naive to it. So you're going in, if you're in the system of whatever it is, 300 people, 10 years, that someone outside of that, why does it need to be like that? And then design a helicopter shaped like a fish.
Well, naivety,
because they didn't know any better.
It's been a theme throughout my life, naivety, I think. And I mean, you might call it courage, but I think it's stupidity. And I'll come to that a bit more in a minute. So but the third circle on here, find something you like and that you're good at. And you might, for example, love playing a computer game and be really good at it. But the question is, does it make a difference to the world? And if it doesn't, then the chances are people won't pay you for it. And ideally, you'd get all four of these. The sweet spot in the middle is something that you like doing, you're good at, that makes a difference, and therefore you can earn a living doing it. But the money's the least important, because if you can find something you like and you're good at and makes a difference, the money will sort itself out. Don't think about it, but never come in with, right, what's well paid? Because if it's well paid, you probably won't like it. You might not be good at it. Who knows? So they have to be in that order. I really think they do. So I thought, as an engineer, that the answer was management. And making a difference is still one of my criteria. So this morning I did a 3-hour time management talk with some people for not very much money. It wasn't worth it for me. But I did it because it was going to make a difference, and it was fun to do because, I felt I was making a difference to them. I might be wrong. They might not do anything as a result, but I sort of hope that it changes their lives ever so slightly. They picked up something. And when I'm doing training, it's making a difference that drives me. And really, that's the big thing for the projects I'm doing of the various. So the Mr. Gantt software, I want to make some project management software that people will use and will really make a difference. And whether I make money out of it or not, I don't care really. I mean, it'd be nice, but I probably won't. But I want something that everybody uses and loves, and we need that because project management software is terrible at the moment. So I went into management, but what I found was it didn't make a difference. You had to keep, it's like a drug. You keep thinking the next level up, I could really make a difference. But I found I was quite good at it as well, but I found it wasn't making a difference. I also found that I didn't really like doing it. I had to do horrible things to people. And although I was quite good at it, I didn't really enjoy it. So I chucked it all in to be a university lecturer because I figured there that, that might be more fun. I might enjoy that more. And I did. I really enjoyed it. And I was good at it too. And I think it was probably making a bit of difference. The problem was it was really badly paid. I literally couldn't live off the money. And, I know that lots of people do live off teachers' pay and university lecturers' pay, but I'd become used to being paid quite a lot as a manager in industry. And so I halved my pay to be a lecturer. And it's hard to halve your lifestyle once you've got hooked on those things, and not that I live that expensive a lifestyle, but so I did that for a while and I loved it. It gave me 3 out of 4. And then they made us all redundant one day suddenly and said, you're all freelance. Chris, you're a freelance trainer. Good luck. And suddenly there I was just doing my own thing. And that turned out to be much better paid, because we used to be charged out at £1,000 a day from the university business school. So they would pay £1,000 for me and I would get 200 of that. So I was on 20K. I did 100 days a year. And of course, once you're freelance, you can think, well, what if I charge, say, 800 or 700 times 100 days? That's 70 grand. And then you sort of find you can charge a lot more than 700 for a day of training. You charge double that, and you can do more than 100 days. So the money suddenly really sorted itself out. And my only niggling doubt was I making a difference? Because if you drive around the country endlessly, training 20 people at a time, you get through 2,000 people a year, but you sort of have a slight feeling that only half of them are going to do anything as a result of the training course. A lot of people have just been sent. And so the final step on my sort of journey of discovery has been making video courses. You mentioned in the intro, and the first one I made was project management, and that did really well. So I thought, well, I must do more of these. So as you said, I've made nearly 40 video courses now, which are on LinkedIn Learning, and some of them are on a place called Udemy as well. So if LinkedIn Learning reject them because they've already got something in their library, then I put them on Udemy, udemy.com. And some of my best ones are on Udemy because LinkedIn Learning didn't want them, but they're in both places. These ones you can just buy for 15 quid, whereas LinkedIn Learning, you have to subscribe. It's a different model. But the point about that is that they are being viewed by thousands, about 20,000 people a day are viewing my online courses. And I love that because, I mean, I do get paid a small amount per course, which adds up nicely. But the main thing is it's really making a difference. So my project management course has been viewed by, I think, about 10 million people now. And if only 1% of them do what I've told them, that's still, what's 1% of 10 million? I think it might be 100,000 projects, 100,000 projects that I've made a difference to, which is, I love that. So for me, making a difference is the biggest. But you can't do that unless it's something you're good at, and you're not going to be good at it really unless you enjoy it. So for me, that I think Ikigai is absolutely the answer. That's pretty much the meaning of life right there. But of course, the question is to find it. And I just kept trying different things, hoping that I would find something that would work. And it's taken me almost my whole life to discover that making video courses and put them online is what I'm good at. I don't know why. There are loads of things I'm bad at, but I have got that ability to talk to the camera and record courses. It's something to do with buffering between your brain and your mouth. So while I'm talking, I'm buffering up the next thing I'm going to say. I don't know what it is. So, but it's taken me my whole life to discover that. And if only a computer could sort of say, ka-chunk, this is what you must do. But unfortunately, I don't think that exists. And my advice to people would be keep trying different things. And if you try lots of things, the chances are one of those things will be the one. But never just settle and think, oh, well, that's the job I do. I'm not very good at it, but, I need the money. So, never settle, because this is your life.
And that, I think, is a real challenge that many are facing right now in terms of organizations are going through lots of shifts, lots of change, and so are individuals. And they're causing each other to make those changes. So something that we have gone, I'm going to learn loads of things, Chris. I'm going to go to university and I'm going to work my way and I'm going to invest all this time, all this effort to gain this knowledge. And now I want to apply that knowledge.
You build this tower, don't you?
Yeah. And to unpick that, to decouple our identity from who we are linked to the job we do, to then dabble, can seem quite daunting for many when you've accumulated an identity and experience, who we are to our friends and family, to then, what's going on? They've got a crisis, a midlife crisis, they're trying other things. But I think that just reevaluation of how do you feel this sort of vision for how organizations and people are preparing for what's going on? Because there's no doubt the environment has shifted for the workplace, and we're going through an absolute transformation led by, technology, by globalization, you being able to do
from home
videos that can reach 20,000 people a day is a convergence of many technologies, of internet, of video, of streaming, of actually things like compression of content. All of those things have converged to make that possible.
Yeah, couldn't have done it 20 years ago.
No. So the
But
world of possibility is now massive.
yes, people complain about the rate of change, but actually it all means possibilities.
Yes.
I mean, even
so how
when
do we deal
COVID
with
came,
that?
I remember when COVID came, everyone was going, oh my God, it's going to be awful. And I remember thinking, this is going to be interesting. And I bet something comes from this. And of course, what came from it, amongst many other things, was Zoom. And everybody became used to the idea of Zoom. So I was thinking I could do training courses for people in Australia and America using Zoom. And I'd always had people in America saying, if you're ever over here, come and do a talk. But you know, you can't do a tour of America very easily. Even when you get there, it's so big. But with Zoom, you can just do an hour. And then instead of going to somewhere and doing a day of training, you can just do an hour a week. And that's much less disruptive for people's work. So as soon as anything changes, there are always good possibilities as well as bad. I've been thinking a lot about optimists and pessimists, and I don't know any successful pessimists. You know, successful people are always optimists, and they always think, yeah, I could use that. That's interesting. So I think
heard a big study actually, Chris, nearly 1 million people. It was 990,000 people studied over a long period of time in the military. And they were looking at the correlation between a sense of thriving, optimism, hopefulness, and performance, i.e., what kind of medals do they get? And was there a link between this sense of thriving, this sense of optimism, and ultimately their performance medals of honor, whatever it may be?
Surely
and there is undeniable those that are in a state of thriving, in a state of optimism, in a state of positivity, absolutely empirical evidence of they're the most successful from a performance, if performance result was a medal, right?
Yes.
And so that I find really interesting in terms of how we can show up, how we can affect our thoughts and views of the world, then result in an actual performance outcome that we're looking for. And I'm interested in terms of, you know, you've evolved for the last 2 decades in essence, learning and training other human beings to be better, to understand principles more in your areas of specialism that you're good at, that you like. And in that kind of transformation and supporting people of their learning journey, post, say, traditional education, schools and universities, so in work, I'm just curious, what are you seeing organizations doing well? Obviously, you've mentioned Udemy, LinkedIn Learning. What are organizations doing that help them empower their workforce with their training, with their skills? Because you made a comment that I think
not enough is
many, you know, you said, oh, they were told to go. They were told to go and do it. And obviously that's not ideal if someone's being told, oh, go and do this course with Chris.
Yeah.
How are organizations doing that well, and how are people and teams doing it well that you've seen?
Well, the first thing I'd say is the bigger the organization, the worse they are usually. I mean, all right, big organizations often have a big training budget, so that's good. But they tend to get really stuck in their ways. And, you know, given the pace of change and the number of opportunities as well as threats out there, organizations ought to welcome new ideas. But they don't, because the managers are comfortably off, thank you very much, don't change anything because it suits me, sort of thing. And so they don't really welcome new ideas. And I've had a whole lifetime of suggesting improvements and being told to keep quiet. I'm a troublemaker, you know. And then really they should be encouraging creativity of their managers. But I don't think creativity is very highly valued. You know, managers need to be loyal and tough and good with the numbers and deliver change or whatever. But coming up with ideas, there's always this feeling it should come from the top, which is impossible. It's too hard to do if you're at the top and you don't know what the issues even are. So I think creativity is probably the #1 thing a manager is there for. Because if you're going to keep everything the same, you don't even need a manager apart from to stop people skiving off home or something. In fact, they're probably working from home already. So the one job of a manager is to look at it and think, how can we make this better? How can we improve this? How can we change this? You know, I joke that the purpose of management is to give people pain by initiating projects, but it kind of is. And I think creativity is such a fragile and difficult thing, and organizations are not good at fostering that. So for example, when I was doing training courses for Bournemouth University, I just went into companies and taught them stuff. And I did some lecturing on the MBA course as well. But if I'd said, that course I did today, I think we should video it and stick it on the internet and sell it for £1 a view, and we might get 1 million viewers, they'd have said, oh, no, we don't want that. Oh, no, you're a lecturer. You're not a video maker. Anyway, we don't have any cameras. And, and there would have been, and there was a whole sort of support department for the training side of things, which would have had to disappear if we'd changed to video make. It couldn't happen, right? But now I'm self-employed. I can easily just think, I'm going to make a video today. And especially if I haven't sold a training course today, I can think, well, what should I do today? I know I'm going to make a video. And I can experiment with that, because there's nobody saying that's not your job. And there's nobody safeguarding the existing system. And if I can find something that's a bit more time efficient, if I can do my own copying and it's quicker, I'm not putting a photocopying department out of business or something like that. So, and this is where we get to the fractal working thing that I've been investigating. Because if you're on your own, it's much easier to change. And if you're both doing and selling, if you're talking to the customer and they say, well, we don't want you for a whole day, you can say, well, what about if we did an hour at a time over Zoom? And they go, yeah, that would work. And you can do that. Whereas if you've got a salesperson who sells training and a trainer who delivers training, it's very difficult to change, both at the same time. We're going to do videos now. You sell videos, I'll make videos. But if it's all one person, it's really easy just to think, well, the customer wants this and I could do this, and there's an overlap between what they want and what I can do. So let's do that. So I've found that creativity is much easier when you don't have a boss. And if anything, bosses' job is to prevent creativity and keep things rolling along the way they are. So I think organizations have not done very well at that. I think another thing they could do is discover potential in their staff. So quite often you get people who just sit behind a desk doing one thing and could actually be really good at doing a load of other things if they were only asked. But, oh no, that's your job, so we don't even think about asking them. And, there's probably someone in the IT department who'd be brilliant at marketing if you only asked them, to write some copy or put a bit on the website or whatever. And there might be somebody in finance who'd be great at selling if they actually met a customer or whatever. And I don't know how organizations can discover the potential of staff, but I think that's something that would be worth thinking about, because there's so much wasted.
Do you know what I had a vision of there, Chris, was you used to have mufti days where you could go in wearing the non-uniform.
Yeah.
And I had this mashup vision, as you were describing there, of a fancy dress party where every so often you can go and take on the persona of different roles.
I'm a salesperson today.
I'm a salesperson today. I'm this. So it's a kind of a mix of stars in your eyes. Who do you want to be today? Opportunity. And
at the very least, job experience, which you do when you're sort of a student. But why not somebody who's 40? But yeah, why not spend the day with the salespeople? Somebody to get someone out of the design office and go out with the salespeople, because you'd get so much cross-pollination there of discover. Is that what you say to customers? And he wanted this. Why don't we do this? And also, I'd quite like to be a salesperson, they might think. So I think companies, keep everybody in the silos. And
so employee mobility, giving more mobility for people to move around. How is that? One bit of pressure can make that happen. Another bit of pressure can keep them into their rigidity of what they've known. So for example, we're going through so much, we're under so much pressure. We've just got to get through, therefore we can't allow that. That's playful, that is experimental. I can't run an experiment. I have to do something that's
you can't play. No,
can't play. So I can understand the pressure that companies and managers,
the bigger they are, the harder it is,
the harder to be playful. So creating that experimentation.
I also think working from home has made it more difficult, because once you're at home, you're isolated and you're not even in the same office, or you're not going to meet someone from a different department or anything. You're in your lane then, aren't you? And if you love your lane and you're happy in your lane, great. But it's really hard to discover other things that people can do when they're working remotely. If there's a hybrid model, they come in for 2 or 3 days a week, that'll be fine. And that's probably where it's going to go. But I think I had a really interesting conversation with a friend of mine last week, and he was saying that he was talking to this lady who was working from home, and he said, "How are you finding it?" And she said, "Oh, I'm more productive at home." And he said, "So does that mean you're actually doing more?" And she said, "Well, no, I'm just doing my job, but I'm more productive." And he said, "Oh, so do you do your job in less time?" And she said, No, it still takes me a full day." And he said, "Well, so why are you more productive then?" And she said, "Well, because I don't get interrupted." And her measure of productivity was uninterrupted work. And I think that's really interesting, because I think maybe the biggest difference with working from home is you don't get interrupted. And I've never thought about interruptions as being that important. They're just a sort of annoying thing that happens. But actually, maybe they're really important, because maybe the one reason you would go to work is to be interrupted, because when you're interrupted, it may interrupt you, but the other person is gaining, aren't they? And that's almost the definition of what a team is, that I can come and interrupt you and ask you questions and learn from you. And you don't mind paying a small price because it helps me. And everybody's interrupting each other in the office, but that's sort of what synergy and teamwork is, isn't it? And so when we're working from home, we don't get that benefit. We just have the sort of illusion of productivity, but we're not, the creative cross-fertilization is perhaps not going to happen so much.
Yeah, I
And
think
so,
the
I'm thinking I might be against that.
The interruption part, I think, has just found other ways and other avenues. So whilst we might think, oh, we're not getting interrupted because Chris hasn't walked in, or we haven't bumped into each other when we're having our lunch or wherever it may be, is that, oh, we're scheduling everything now because we are working remotely. But I think there are other systems, whether it's Slack or Teams or various bits, where the interruptions have gone from
I like
physical
Slack. You can do it with Slack.
communication is actually, maybe it's a textual interruption, and it's gone from at the point to then be asynchronous. I can decide when I want to be interrupted. I can fly that poke message over to Chris, and Chris might be in the middle of something, and then he sees the notification and come and look at it and respond. So I think the pace of interruptions shifted. I think it's still there. And I personally have experienced an absolute overwhelm of interruption, because it's so much easier, because they don't need to look in and have a bit of spidey sense to see, oh, I see he's busy right now.
It's actually better.
Wait,
it's better because you don't have to answer it immediately.
Don't have to answer it immediately. So I think there are still interruptions in there, but what
maybe you're right.
I think the jazz that happens when the interruption is in real time with each other, whereas it's elongated when it's just textual. Oh, you've done it, and something else is done. The person,
and when you're face to face, you get spin-offs and little extra bits you hadn't thought of. Whereas you notice something on their desk, or you get chatting and you discover that they're doing something you didn't know, and that, we mustn't lose that. But as long as we can keep coming into work 2 days a week or whatever, we can probably still get that.
Yeah, I think there is elements of it. As we come to the witching hour, Chris, because our time spins so quickly, I do want to cover two quick pieces. You mentioned creativity as a key skill. You've given us Ikigai as not only a framework, but the timing of how to focus on that, which first, to help us in our endeavors as we move forward throughout life. Are there any other skills that you think are really important to help us in the environments we're finding ourselves, of massive transformational shifts of what work even is? So a quick answer to any other skills, and then I've got one final question for you, Chris, of which will be a surprise question.
I think definitely learning, just keep learning stuff. I recently learned editing videos. Love that. It's given me loads of ideas. I used to get somebody else, but editing my own has given me all sorts of thoughts, and how to use a green screen and different types of microphone. And so learning and experimenting, just trying things. So, I'm offering customers blended learning, where we do a bit of face-to-face, a bit of some videos they can watch, and a bit of Zoom in different orders. And I'm experimenting, because I don't know what will sell and what won't. And you can't calculate. You have to just experiment and see, I think. So I think learning and experimenting are really, really important. I do think being positive and having fun and playing, because playing is linked to learning, isn't it? That's how animals learn, when they sort of play fight and things. I don't know why I'm such an optimist. I mean, is it hereditary? Is it upbringing?
But there is a part of our genome that links to our level of optimism, and partly even then just our ability to deal with cortisol. So our cortisol regulation, we have a genetic predisposition that allows us to either deal with stress differently, and therefore that might manifest in a character trait like optimism.
So what can a person do if they're a bit of a pessimist? And I've noticed that my mood, I mean, it's affected by all sorts of things, but light, obviously, and SAD lamps and things I think are really interesting. But I also think sleep. I think maybe half the population go through their lives a bit tired.
Yep.
And it's really easy to not realize that you don't have to be like that. And you know, I find if I get more than 8 hours sleep a day, which is quite a lot, especially as I don't go to bed till midnight. But since I've been working from home, I don't do anything before about 10 o'clock in the morning. And it means I wake up when I want to now. And I feel so much more lively and full of ideas. I think sleep's really a big deal.
Sleep is the big deal. I remember reading Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, and I've probably bought 40 copies of this book, Chris, to give to people I love and I care about. It profoundly changed my perspective of sleep, of, it gets in the way of the good stuff, to it being the good stuff.
Yeah.
And for 4 years, I've been tracking, this is an Oura ring.
Oh, you got one of those.
Been tracking my sleep. It gives you your HRV, so your nervous system recovery rate, of your heart rate variability, all these sorts of things. That's changed my relationship with sleep.
Gosh, I didn't realize that. I just discovered it myself.
A link to your creativity, all sorts of things. So yeah, sleep, massively important.
How many hours a night do you need? Or
well, it's I definitely recommend reading Why We Sleep. So there is an element of the hours, but it's also the type and quality that I have. So we need both deep and REM. And then we also have an element of light, because it does different things in the body, whether it's actually removing toxins from the brain. So there's a link that we don't know whether dementia's caused because of lack of sleep or dementia causes less sleep, but there's definitely a link between some of those in the neuron plaque that builds up. So it's
I haven't got that.
Massive impact on sleep from a health perspective to a cognitive ability, to then all of the other physiology in our vitality. You talked about our energy.
And there's exercise, obviously, and food and things like that. But
sleep is a bigger contributor to our health, both mental and physical, than exercise and food.
So the other thing I'd add, apart from sleep, that I've discovered that I really would love to share really quickly, is goals. Knowing what your personal goals are in your life. They're a big source of motivation, because they're what make you self-disciplined. They're what make you assertive, because I'm doing this goal, don't get in my way. So you should always know what you're working on next. And I've got certain things I want to do. My next goal is to film some other people making courses. And I'm already thinking about how I'm going to do that. I'm going to buy a studio. I know how many I want to make. You know, I know how it's all going to work in my mind already. You have to imagine everything in your head before you do it. And so goals, I accidentally discovered goals in my 30s, and totally blew my mind, the idea that if you write things down, they happen. And I absolutely believe that. So because they make you more assertive, more disciplined, and they're like setting sat nav, you make the right decisions because they take you towards. So, you know, we don't need to go into that now, but I think goals and sleep are probably the biggest things that I would say contribute to my energy, I think.
So I think this is going to be an interesting one for you, Chris. It's a question I ask every guest at the end, and it's one I don't give you in prep. And it's about curiosity. And it's framed like this. It's, when was the last time you did something for the first time, and what was it?
Well, I don't know whether these things count, but only last week I went to London to interview a friend of mine about what his company is doing, and we're going to cut it up into lots of videos and stick it on LinkedIn. And we explored office design and the effect it has on how people think and on productivity. So sort of interviewing somebody, that's I haven't really done that before, but that wasn't massively out of my comfort zone. I've ordered an electric car, which is coming soon. So that's that's going to take me out of my comfort zone a bit, because where am I going to fill up, etc. You know, but I'm just thinking it's got to be done. I'm just going to do it. I'll find a way when I get it. I actually think foreign travel is, like, if you go to India I don't know, have you ever been there, Ross? Have you been to India?
I haven't been to India. No.
It's the most fantastic place, and it's not like any other country. It's so crazy, but exciting and brilliant and friendly and mad. But that is, if you go somewhere like that, that's doing something for the first time you've never done before, because everything's different. I've got Japan on my list next. I want to go there.
Nice.
That's going to be unusual. I mean, even the toilets are doing something that you've never done, doing something for the first time with their weird little squirty pipes and things they have allegedly. So I think travel is a way that I push myself out of my comfort zone. I also quite often agree to doing talks on subjects which are not exactly ones I've done before. So I was asked to do a talk on how to be motivated. How do you keep yourself motivated? And I did that recently, and they asked me, and I said, yep, I'll do that. And when I accepted it, I had no idea what I was going to say, really. But there's bits of knowledge I can draw on from all over the place, as you can tell from this conversation. But I do keep pushing myself by accepting subjects to speak on that I haven't done, because a lot of keynote speakers just talk about, they have one talk they do, and they always do the same talk. Oh, he's the guy that does, what he learnt when he was a fighter pilot or something. He just does his fighter pilot talk over and over again. But I quite like to, I'm happy to do talks I've done before for money, but I do quite like saying yes to a talk I haven't done before. So I think my answer to your question is, I'm doing lots of little things all the time, encroaching a little bit all the time, rather than a big, oh my God, I've never done that.
There's incredible power in that, Chris, of the beautiful piece of marginal gains. Adam Grant talked about it, of these little marginal gains add up over time and they compound. And the one thing I do want to share with you is actually a Marcel Proust quote. And it's this one.
The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new lands, but seeing with new eyes. Oh yeah, I like it.
So I just really loved that concept of that thought, that why couldn't everything we do look and feel like the first time? And what naivety, what joy, what we bring to that, because often we're just on autopilot. We're just going through the motions, been there, done it, got the t-shirt, and we miss so many things. Now there's an advantage of, missing it because it was noise, but the environment changes, we change, our teams change, that actually to be coming in with new eyes to something, whether you've done it 100 times or not, could be a really interesting viewpoint to take.
Well, yeah, I think that's why talking to other people, especially people you don't know very well, it's so fascinating. I mean, just talking to you now, we've talked about a load of things we've never talked about before, and that gives me a chance to see it with new eyes because of the things that you're saying. So I think, it's a bit like Howard Jones, who did those solo albums, and he was great for his first album, but he sort of ran out of ideas by about the third one. And how do you keep it interesting? And Ed Sheeran, but he's now doing lots of collaborations with rappers and stuff, because that gives him new ideas, and he's absolutely right to be doing that. So I think you can see things new eyes if you're with somebody else. But can I finish with something almost romantic?
Love it. Go for it.
Because just while we're thinking, because every now and then I meet my wife somewhere, she's coming from a different direction, and we meet in town or whatever, and I'm waiting for her, and sometimes she comes around the corner and I don't recognize her for an instant. She's in a different coat from what I was expecting, or something, or she comes from the other direction. And I find myself thinking, oh, that woman looks quite attractive. And then I realize it's my wife. And
that is beautiful.
And I see her with new eyes, because just for an instant, I mean, it's only half a second before I recognize her. But it's quite weird to have that feeling of that's what she would look like if I didn't know her, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
But luckily I like the look of her when I don't recognize her. So
that's a great
that works out well for both of us.
To finish off, Chris, how do people get in touch with you? What's the best way? Where would you prefer they go to find out the world of Chris?
Two things really. Chriscroft.com is my website. So just have a look at my website. There's loads of free stuff there, my blog, loads of things there. And the other thing is following me on LinkedIn. I nearly said connect, but I've run out of connections. They limit the number of connections. Did you know?
Yeah, at 30,000, and
only
I think you're at
30,000.
142,000, Chris. So you are.
Yeah, so follow me
man.
on LinkedIn, and because I post, every day or every couple of days, all sorts of interesting stuff. And, half of it may not appeal to you, but half of it, even if it's only Terry Dactyl, my character who I've created, who says the most horrible things and gets everything wrong. But there might be something on LinkedIn that you like. So please do follow me on LinkedIn. I just put Chris Croft into LinkedIn and there I am. And if you want more, go to chriscroft.com and have a look at my website. Could even get my vegetables book as a present for somebody for Christmas, maybe.
Christmas is coming up.
All those color illustrations, look, you want them.
Look at that. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you. I always
It's been really fun. It's been great. Not enough time, but apart from that, brilliant.
Deepest gratitude. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for having me. Bye for now.
Do you have the level of adaptability to survive and thrive the rapid changes ahead? Has your resilience got more comeback than a yo-yo? Do you have the ability to unlearn in order to reskill, upskill and break through? Find out today and uncover your adaptability profile and score, your AQ. Visit AQai.io to gain your personalized report across 15 scientifically validated dimensions of adaptability. For a limited time, enter code PODCAST65 for a complimentary AQME assessment. AQai, transforming the way people, teams and organizations navigate change. Thank you for listening to this episode of Decoding AQ. Please make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast directory, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Please do leave a review and be sure to tune in next time for more insights from our amazing guests.